Hello, everyone. Welcome for another episode of the Creative Minds. I'm Flavio Stiffan, and we have a very exceptional episode, I think, today. Different timing also on the way we're broadcasting this. This is obviously thanks to the fact that the person that we have, the guest we have, is on the other side of the world. But before that, my co-host is Stuart. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thanks, Flavio. And this is going to be an interesting episode because I think the Asian market generally is a little bit unknown to a lot of people. There's always been a bit of lack of clarity, especially I think when I started in the electronics industry, it was clear that, so for example, Japan was a very different market and how you did business there was different. And obviously over the last decade, China's become more and more important, and they have lots of different types of social media channels, and it's all sort of a bit enclosed, different to the Western perspective on social media and the channels we use for B2B marketing. So it's great to have someone with so much expertise on the show today to talk to us and guide us through the complexities and the differences and the similarities. So I'm very excited.
Indeed, and this is a huge topic, so we're going to run just right into it. I want to introduce Lambert Hilkes. He's a strategic marketing consultant. He's joining us from Taiwan. Lambert, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
This is fantastic to have you. I mean, this is, Asia is huge, right? This is the most populous, I was surprised when we prepared this, the most populous region of the world. And everybody is going after that. And for Westerners to go and do marketing there and build marketing campaigns and figuring out how to attract the attention of the audience, it's a big challenge. I mean, when we think about Asia, the first reaction is to talk about China, which we will talk about. But Asia also includes India, Japan, Vietnam, and many countries. This is a huge territory, right?
Very true. But to start with Stuart's comment by saying not so much knowledge about Asia and so many different countries, it should not be a surprise, really, that so many different countries have different approaches to marketing and everything else. Because when you go to Europe, your marketing budget and your marketing activities will be different in Germany or in France or in Italy or in Scandinavia or in the UK. So everybody who is involved there should believe, per se, that so many countries in Asia must also be a variety of activities. And indeed it is. And as we know, the marketing activities into Asia are getting more important, further markets, further activities. And after the COVID situation, we hope with a certain normal activity, this will even intensify.
Yeah, and this is kind of interesting out of the whole discussion when we are referring to China, which is the big elephant in the room. I think when it comes to talk about marketing, it has such a different ecosystem associated with that, and we'll touch a little on that. But we don't want to have this discussion just about China today. I want to tell that to our audience, and the reason for this is because it's been already addressed in many places. But I think out of the whole thing, when you have Westerners that are building strategies for the Asian market, it's difficult to do it from a distance. I mean, Stuart, you've been part of a PR company. How you've seen also that diversity, right? How to go and deal with it.
Yeah, I think the key thing is to probably engage with partners initially. Maybe Lambert has some insights from his side, but I think there's such a wide diversity of countries as was already highlighted. It's there are elements of requiring to tackle each market individually, just as we would do in Europe and across the Americas as well. I think one of the things with Japan, for example, Japan is, I think, completely different to any country in the world in terms of trying to do business there and compared to any other Western country. And within the media, for example, one of the things I discovered was that when you're working with the press, the journalists who work on particular topics, they change very regularly. Something like 9 to 18 months is how long they spend maybe on say, industry or semiconductors or sensors or IoT. And then all of a sudden they're gone. And when we compare that to what happens here in Germany, I could establish a journalistic contact with a magazine, and probably a decade later, I'm still talking to the same person on the same topic. So those, if you're not there in Japan regularly, keeping up to date with the media industry and the contacts within the industry, it's very, very difficult to actually engage in any sort of meaningful press relations activity there at all.
Lambert, when we talk about strategy, and in our Western world, we do like quarterly strategy, yearly strategies. How does this fit in Asia? How does it fit in China, for example?
Okay, that brings us to the basic business models in Asia, because the majority, certainly in Greater China, but also in some of the other Asian countries, the business model is business by opportunity. That means more tactics than strategy, which at the same time gives the enormous flexibility that they have, very quick decisions, fast decisions. Something comes up, oh, there is a fair somewhere, somebody tells me, oh, we should join. So there is no budget, there is no preparation in that sense that we would have the full year budget for which fairs do we want to join, etc. No, it is all by opportunity. And this means if you think you can bring on a stable 1 year budget or marketing philosophy into those countries, and maybe you think of, okay, we will translate it into the local language. Well, this is like offering a schnitzel with rice instead of with potatoes. This will not succeed. So like Stuart said, you have to have local partners. I always say you have local people in charge and in command. The only person that I would put as an European or American manufacturer into my branch in Asia would be the CFO. All other people would be locals. Plus, and here we go to what you said, you need partners, you need PR agencies. They exist. They are all also working with the same principle of business by opportunity. That's why you see them 6 months or 1 year or 1.5 years and no more, because they pop up somewhere else. So this also gives you an idea of what we would call in the West kind of loyalty. There is very little loyalty, again, specifically in Greater China, no loyalty between employer-employee, no loyalty between buyer and seller. It is all short-term. It's all tactics. Of course, the English-speaking countries, if we may call them like that, like India or Singapore, they are very familiar with the Western media, and they are also using them. All the others, when you look at Vietnam, is probably the most advanced today, with R&D located in Vietnam. They start to need marketing. The others are mainly focusing on subcontracting in the manufacturing area. And from subcontracting to marketing is still a very, very, very long way. So this is one more reason why you don't have this strategic portion of marketing in large parts of Asia. You mentioned Japan, Flavio. Well, Japan is a very different animal anyway. So the Japanese relationship kind of business, you cannot enter like an American or like a European. Now I'm here, now I'm one of yours. It will not work. So that's why one of the recipes that were successful, which I have helped to launch, you hire retired Japanese seniors from other manufacturers or other entities, and they represent your company in Japan among their golf clubs, among their universities, etc. If you don't have that,
Yeah.
very, very difficult. And for example, you need AVLs if you are selling products to manufacturers. It is a nightmare in Japan to go for an approval. They only stick to the approved vendor list once established, and next generations of buyers, next generations of salespeople, etc., will not have a tendency to change that. There must happen very dramatic things to make them more flexible and add new sources or new relationships.
It's quite interesting, isn't it? Because there's then a stark difference between Japan, where the relationship is established and then kept forever, but then, as you just said, in China, you do business once, and then for the next round of business, you might not even be spoken to.
They still ask you for an annual price, for example, because they want it as low as possible, right? But they have no intention whatsoever to give you a binding forecast or not to check other manufacturers with lower prices, hopefully, immediately when they sign with you. That means you have an order this quarter, but probably not next quarter. So you need to have all kinds of incentives, contact, local contact, to have a minimum of customer base. You know, we in Europe, America, we love the customer base. I can rely on these so many customers. I have a basic loading of my factory or my sales. Forget it in Asia, except Japan once you're in.
Yeah, and I think this is interesting because I mean we keep saying that global marketing has to act regionally. I mean it would be the same in Europe, or the same in Latin America, the same in North America, where technically we look more at addressing the local audience with campaigns or with material content that has been created by local people. I mean, when it comes to a lot of countries in Asia, you have different writings, different languages, yes, different cultures. So it makes it even difficult to transfer a Chinese campaign to Vietnam or to Japan or to Korea, which is another one,
Yes.
because they have different ethnicities, they even have internal fights within, and they have also those elements of different writing. So it is kind of interesting when we specifically talk about marketing, about the fact that one needs to have literally multiple teams managing different countries into each one of those because of those very specific regional elements, correct?
Yeah. To give one example, in Japan, for example, they will not jump on videos, not at all. What you need to provide is either very old-fashioned printed material, and there you go with Nikkei. They dominate the market, and they are very expensive, but they are very efficient. But for example, you can only go there as a manufacturer. They do not accept any inputs from non-manufacturing people. So if you are a distributor or if you are a trader or something like that, they will not accept your input, number one. Number two, the control in China, again, for the wording of your activities, you will not be able to do that by yourself because you need a person in an agency who, again, is friend and cooperating with a person in the government who decides what kind of wording can be accepted in your ads or in your promotion. So if you say, for example, this is the first time China can see such a wonderful product, no way, it will not go through. Or we have the best product, no way. So they really control that very strictly. And again, I say, forget translating existing material. You can use it for the agency or for your local people. This is what I want to express, but they will do it in their culture. which means in Japan, for example, cartoon instead of video. They love cartoons. Mm-hmm. So when you do Popeye or I don't know what as introducing a product, they will listen or look at it.
That's
they also, yeah, they also want technical input. They do not pay attention to any, what we call in Europe, marketing call, just say something nice about my product. No, it is all technical. In Korea, it is very technical. In China, it is, how do I get the attention? It is only attention, because when you look at their websites, we would say total chaos. So you will hesitate to do your website in the same way that they set it up, because you will say, oh, nobody can read that and so confusing, and this comes out, but this does not come out. No, the Chinese use it, and the Chinese are able to handle it, and they jump on it. They have videos, they have pop-ups, they have, when you scroll, you have walking ads and banners, all of that. And they do millions and millions and millions of reads and even shares. And this is your sign as a marketing person, the value of your input. Don't count the clicks. Don't count only the reads. We do that, I know. But don't do it in Asia so much, because in Hong Kong, you won't get any clicks. In Taiwan, you won't get any clicks. In India, you will get tons of clicks, but still you need to follow up in some way or the other with a lot of meetings and talks, etc., etc. But the interesting thing and a good measure, for example, is the transfer of somebody who has read something and sends it to a friend, right? This is the real interest, which is very clear in China.
And I think that's one of the important differences here, isn't it, as well? Because obviously we're used to the type of social media channels that we have typically used in the Western world. So obviously business, you immediately think of LinkedIn. Some people in Germany will think of Xing. But there's a massive difference as to the types of social media and what it's used for in China, for example. So we were looking at a list earlier, weren't we, Flavio?
Yeah, I mean, I think Mick can put that interesting little piece of document that we have. And here we say China and the rest of the world. China has its own ecosystem. And like I said, we don't want to really focus on that. And there's another one, in fact, that you have, Stuart, that Lambert has forwarded to us, talking about sharing. That if we can put the link on the chats, which has even more information about that. Because of the regulations that you see in China, the monitoring of the information, there are some channels that are just not available, some others that are restricted, and they have their own ecosystem behind that. And Lambert, I know that you were talking about RED earlier when we were preparing this program. Can you give our audience a quick view about that one? I thought that was really amazing, and the RED envelopes at the same time, please.
Yeah, it is amazing, but it's pretty common, and you have to accept it. The red envelope in Asia, in most of Asia, is used to hand over some cash to somebody for birthdays or a wedding or what have you, opposite to the white envelope for funerals. And WeChat has an app, which is called Red Envelope. So it is a virtual red envelope, and the Chinese partners, whether buyers or sellers or marketing people, they expect any kind of incentive. And they offer on WeChat Red Envelope, you can put $1 or 10 or 100 into the red envelope and send it to your WeChat partner. So first condition is you need to have a WeChat account. When you have a WeChat account, you can click on the red envelope app. And if he has it also, you get exchange of money on a virtual way, which is legal. Of course, there is some control in it. If the amounts get gray or black, it will be stopped. But these small things for little favors. For example, you have a friend who works for a company and you want to know who is the R&D person who takes decision on design in. He will give you a name and you send him $10 virtually. This is keeping small gifts make friends, we say in Germany.
In our world, we would call this instant gratification, right?
You can call it like that, yeah. But that's much better than other ways that we had before in an excessive way. So it is under control, and it's very, very popular. When you look at WeChat, there are roughly 1 billion visits per month. And my information is that about 80% of those people on WeChat have a red envelope account on it.
So Lambert, how would this work? I mean, if I create a marketing campaign and people click to go to my website, would they earn red envelopes?
You can arrange that. You can do that. Instead of bringing fruit with a promotion or invite for a dinner or all of that, you can do that, and you can do it more widespread and more easy just with a click. And you have an attention. Even if you give $1 only, there are so many people that you have sent to who have your name, who see, I got something, what's that? And start to look into it.
I could see this happening into the Western world eventually, where we have, getting attention on social media in the Western world is as complicated as anywhere else on the planet. But
very correct.
Clearly, it creates a situation where people see a reward or a potential, or they can expect potentially a reward in doing something. And we keep saying that unless there is an interest for the audience to do something while they are being bombarded by so much information, why would they do it? Right. So it is one way to look at it. I think for the audience that is looking at this program, this is something that is obviously a little different to what we would do in Europe or maybe in North America. But eventually, when you see PayPal, where you can move money easily from one account to another, I would say adding this into a fund transfer, or when you see Facebook with WhatsApp starting to go into cryptocurrencies, definitely, I think this is something that can very build upon that into the rest of the world.
Yes, I agree.
I think one of the challenges is in the Western world that we see sort of exchange of money and cash as a bit of a bribe. And I think that's the challenge we're facing. So there's a new website platform, a new web browser being developed over here that I read about recently. And obviously we give away our personal information and other people sell it in order to make money. And the idea here is that with this new web browser is that you can hide the data, but when you want to give it away, when you're happy to share your data, then you can get paid for sharing the data. And really, it's just it's a very long, convoluted way of doing exactly the same thing, isn't it? There isn't really, in theory, anything wrong with giving someone a couple of dollars for a bit of information that you've, in reality, in China, that method is actually a lot faster and a lot more useful if you've actually got the name of somebody. That's a hell of a lot more useful than just having some vague demographics about somebody. So,
and it's not only used in business; it's also used privately. My friends, they are all on the WeChat Red Envelope app.
Yeah,
and we exchange for what kind of purposes anytime.
Exactly. Yeah.
Absolutely. You were briefly talking about what we would call probably a chaotic website or chaotic campaigns.
Yes.
I've been always very impressed with the fact that obviously because it's also a different sign language, it is for us Westerners very complicated to put a sense around campaigns that are running on WeChat, on talk about Weibo, talk about any of the channels that are out there. Do you see in fact now Western companies understanding from the outside eventually how China works, or how Japan works, or how Korea works? Because I don't want to make this just about China. Or do you see that definitely there is a very strong hold on the standpoint of having those local teams there, potentially challenging the rest of the world the other way around about how marketing is being driven?
What I can see is that international companies with strong branches in Asia started to understand and started to adopt the system. Their websites in Asia are no longer translations of their home websites. They have started to adopt the system. It is the same when you want to sell a product which is made in America or in Europe, and you start to do adjustments for the Asian market, right? With other features, or more important for certain features than others. That's exactly the same for marketing. And I can see that those who are implanted already since a while, they are catching it. Unfortunately, the newcomers have to learn the lesson, some the hard way, some knowing what's going to happen, so have immediate local support with agencies, with hiring people, hiring local people, etc. So I can see that that is happening. And the usage of the local media is helping, because you see how my competition is doing it, how my Chinese, my Vietnamese, my Cambodian competition is doing it. So you gradually get to that. And therefore, you absolutely need to be permanent on Baidu. You need, for China, for example, you need to be continuously on Naver in Korea, because Korea is, Naver is the Baidu of Korea. And still you have one little comfort, which is, like I said in the beginning, in English-speaking languages, you can still make use of Google or others, because India will read Google. But in the end, for the rest of Asia, including Japan, must be local. No doubt. Yeah.
I think this is going to be, in fact, part of the conclusion of our episode today, confirming the fact that transcreation, which was one of the talks we had, I think in episode 2 or 3 of the Creative Minds, transcreation is even more critical when it comes to the Asian market. The fact that being local, acting local, seeing local is the only way to position yourself and your name and your brand into those markets. And this is not just an Asian market, it is many, many more countries. Stuart, I think we have to have more discussions about this. This is not the end of it.
Absolutely. It's clear there's such a diversity of cultures also across the whole Asian continent. Obviously, Asia marries up with Europe. So, I mean, it's a massive landmass, over 4 billion people living there. It's 2/5 of the world's population. And I think we've had some great insights today from Lambert regarding, how to tackle the Asian market, how to get involved locally in different countries across Asia, which will be really helpful for people who have been asked. There's marketing management being asked by their CEOs or their management team, how are we going to go about this? What should we do? And I think we've learned a lot about how to get started on that process. And it's obviously not easy, but there are solutions there, and there's a lot to learn, a lot of mistakes to be made as well. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Lambert, thank you for joining us today from Taiwan.
My pleasure.
That's been absolutely a fantastic opportunity talking with you and bringing this up to the audiences. I hope we'll have you maybe on another Creative Minds.
Up to you.
We'll work on
Thank you.
that. Thank you for everybody who's been watching. Keep following the Creative Minds. We have more episodes coming up, a lot of more discussions. Marketing is an evolving science, and we are here to show you how it goes. So don't miss it. Subscribe to the channel. We'll talk very soon. Thank you for watching.